From the moment you were born, your mind began collecting data, sounds, sights, beliefs, behaviors. Everything around you started shaping who you thought you were supposed to be. You didn't choose your first environment. You didn't choose the conversations you overheard. You didn't choose the patterns you witnessed in your household. But all of those things began laying the foundation for your mental operating system. Just like a computer gets loaded with default software, you were loaded with thoughts, fears, and expectations that weren't necessarily yours, but they became yours by repetition. You were programmed every time someone told you to be realistic. You were programmed when a teacher said you're not that smart. You were programmed when you heard your parents stress over bills or say things like, money doesn't grow on trees. You were programmed when people laughed at your dreams. And slowly, quietly, those inputs began carving grooves into your brain. Grooves that became beliefs, and beliefs that became limits. Over time, you accepted them, not because they were true, but because they were familiar. And here's the danger of familiarity. Your brain prefers it. The brain isn't wired for success. It's wired for survival. It doesn't care if you're thriving. It cares if you're safe. So even if the truth you were fed was small, fearful, or destructive, your brain latched onto it because it was repeated, and repetition is how the brain learns. That's why people stay stuck. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because their programming is outdated and they've never questioned the code. Most people never stop to ask, who taught me to think this way? They never pause to investigate the voices in their head. Voices that say you'll never make it, or people like you don't succeed, or stay in your lane. These voices aren't divine. They're not even original. They're echoes, recordings from your past that have been playing so long you started mistaking them for your own. But those voices were someone else's fear, someone else's failure, someone else's frustration. And if you don't confront them, you'll carry someone else's story as your own. What's wild is that this programming doesn't just stay in your thoughts. It shows up in your behavior. It shows up when you procrastinate on your goals, not because you're lazy, but because deep down, you don't believe you're worthy of success. It shows up when you shrink your ideas in rooms full of people, not because you lack vision, but because you were programmed to avoid judgment. It shows up when you play small, self-sabotage, and settle for less, because you've been brainwashed to think less is all you deserve. The subconscious mind runs 95% of your daily life, and it doesn't know the difference between truth and lie. It just accepts what's repeated. So if you grew up hearing negativity, doubt, or defeatist language, then that became your foundation. That's why no matter how much motivation you consume, if you don't change the root programming, you'll always default back to the old system. The problem isn't your ambition. It's the software your ambition is trying to run on. That's why success isn't just about learning something new. It's about unlearning what no longer serves you. It's not just adding new information. It's deleting corrupted files. And unlearning is harder than learning. It requires you to question things you've believed your whole life. It requires you to go back to the mental blueprint and say, wait a minute, who built this? And if the foundation wasn't built on truth, it has to be rebuilt. That process is uncomfortable. But it's necessary if you want to live free. Freedom starts when you take control of the narrative, when you stop letting the past decide your future, when you start writing code on purpose instead of running hand-me-down mental software. You have the power to interrupt the pattern. You have the authority to pause, examine, and replace every single thought that no longer aligns with where you're going. That's not just mindset work. That's spiritual warfare. Because the real battle is in your belief system. Your mind is fertile ground, and it will grow whatever you plant. If you keep planting seeds of doubt, you'll keep reaping frustration. But if you plant seeds of truth, seeds of identity, abundance, faith, and vision, then the harvest shifts. But here's the key. The weeds won't leave on their own. You have to uproot them. You have to actively replace the old program with a new one that's aligned with your purpose, your calling, and your potential. You can't build a new life with an old mindset. The version of you that's successful, free, and walking in overflow doesn't run on fear-based programming. That version of you thinks differently, speaks differently, and believes differently. And that transformation doesn't start outside. It starts in the privacy of your own thoughts. The revolution begins in your mind. Every belief you hold today was planted at some point in your past, and many of those seeds were lies, cleverly disguised as facts, warnings, or just how life works. From childhood, society, culture, even people who loved you, projected their own limitations onto you. Not always out of malice, but out of their own programming. They said, don't get your hopes up. That's too risky. Or you're not cut out for that. Those words weren't just noise. They were lies that started shaping your reality before you ever had a chance to choose your own. When you hear something often enough, especially from a trusted source, your brain internalizes it as truth. The lie becomes law. It becomes the invisible fence around your dreams. And the wild part is most people never realize they're living inside of someone else's fear. They don't know they've accepted lies as boundaries. Instead, they call it being realistic, being humble, being cautious. But underneath all those words is often a deep belief that says, I'm not enough, or I don't deserve more. And that belief doesn't just sit in your mind, it steers your entire life. Lies have a way of nesting. They settle in, they grow roots, and they start influencing everything. How you view opportunity, how you see yourself in a room, how you handle money, how you handle love, how you react to rejection. A single lie, if left unchallenged, can rob you of decades. It can keep you in cycles, stuck in the same place, wondering why nothing ever changes, when in reality, the only thing that needs to change is the story you believe about yourself. You can't activate your full power while you're still carrying someone else's insecurity. You can't walk in authority if your identity is still built on doubt. The lies sound like truth because they've been in your system so long. But just because something feels familiar doesn't make it accurate. That's why you have to confront the internal dialogue, that running script in the back of your mind that says you're too late, too flawed, too inexperienced. You didn't come up with that on your own. It was given to you. And now it's time to give it back. Detoxing the lies requires brutal honesty. You have to look at your results. What patterns keep showing up in your life? What dreams have you been delaying for years? What fears keep getting in the way? Behind every delay is a belief. And often that belief is rooted in deception. You might believe that money is hard to make, or that relationships never last, or that success is reserved for other people. Those aren't random thoughts. They're narratives you've adopted over time, often reinforced by experiences that seemed to prove them right. But even experiences can lie when interpreted through the wrong lens. To detox is to extract. It's not passive, it's painful. Because it means unearthing the parts of your story that you've buried, ignored, or accepted without question. It means sitting in the discomfort of asking, what if I've been wrong about me? And it also means being willing to reject what you were taught if it doesn't serve your growth. That's a bold move. That's a move most won't make, because detoxing the lies forces you to stop blaming your past and start taking full responsibility for your future. The lies you believe will always limit the life you live. You may think you're afraid of failure, but what if you're just afraid of confronting the truth about how powerful you really are? What if you've dimmed your light so long, the thought of turning it all the way up feels overwhelming? What if you're not scared of trying? What if you're scared of succeeding? Because success would require you to fully own your identity. These are the deeper questions that surface when the lies start losing their grip. There's a reason people cling to their limitations. There's a strange safety in familiar pain, a weird comfort in known struggle. It becomes part of your identity. You get used to being the underdog. You learn how to function in dysfunction. But comfort doesn't mean alignment. And peace doesn't mean absence of challenge. It means presence of truth. Until you expose the lies, you can't experience real peace. Just a polished version of internal conflict. A quiet chaos hidden behind a smile. Your potential doesn't need to be created, it needs to be revealed. And what's in the way of that revelation? The lies, the false identities, the old programming that says you can't, you shouldn't, you won't. Every time you shed a lie, more of your real power comes into view. Power isn't something you get from the outside. It's something you unlock from within. But to access it, you've got to get honest about what doesn't belong inside you anymore. When the lies are gone, clarity rushes in, not because you learned something new, but because you finally unlearned the deception that was clouding your vision. You don't need more potential, you need less pollution, less doubt, less fear, less borrowed insecurity. You need to detox your mind the same way you detox your body, aggressively, consistently, and unapologetically. Only then can the truth about who you are rise to the surface and lead your life. Every word you speak is a seed, and every seed produces a harvest. The world you're living in today is a reflection of the words you've sown consistently over time. Whether you realize it or not, your language has been shaping your life, not just in conversations with others, but in the secret, ongoing conversation you have with yourself. That internal dialogue, the one that runs on repeat in your mind, has more influence over your actions, decisions, and destiny than any external factor. The truth is, your words don't just describe your life, they design it. Most people speak based on how they feel, not realizing that feelings are temporary, but words are tools that build permanent structures. When you say, I'm tired, I'm broke, I'm overwhelmed, you're not just expressing a feeling, you're reinforcing a pattern. Your brain and body hear you, your subconscious listens, and it starts moving in agreement with what you declare. That's how powerful your mouth is. It doesn't just report on your reality, it creates it. The words you speak consistently become beliefs. The beliefs you hold shape your expectations. Your expectations drive your behavior, and your behavior determines your results. So if you trace it all the way back, the starting point of success or failure is speech. That's why people who constantly talk about problems rarely see solutions. They've programmed their mind to expect struggle. They've built a vocabulary of defeat. And now they live inside the very thing they keep talking about. There's a reason why speaking life is a discipline. It's not just about being positive or avoiding negativity. It's about aligning your language with your identity, your vision, and your future. If you want to see overflow, you have to start declaring overflow. If you want to live in purpose, you have to start speaking purpose. The atmosphere around you responds to the authority within you. But that authority is only activated when you open your mouth and release words that match the life you desire, not the life you're trying to escape. Too many people use their words to survive, not to build. They say just enough to get by, to keep peace, to play it safe. But safe speech leads to stagnant lives. Growth requires bold declarations, faith-filled speech, words that stretch you beyond what your eyes can see right now. You don't need to wait until the situation looks different to speak differently. You have to speak differently so the situation can shift. Speech is the strategy that comes before the shift, not after it. Think about the people who always say, nothing ever works out for me. That's not just a complaint, that's a confession. And the more they say it, the more they train their brain to expect failure. So even when opportunity shows up, they don't see it clearly. Or worse, they self-sabotage. Not because they lack potential, but because their words have painted a picture of a world where good things are rare and struggle is normal. They're living in the house their words built. You have to become fiercely intentional with your vocabulary. Stop casually speaking what you don't want. Stop repeating language that doesn't match your assignment. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, say, I'm in the process of increasing my income. Instead of, I always mess things up, say, I'm learning and growing stronger every day. Instead of, I'm just trying to make it, say, I'm being prepared for more than enough. These are not just words, they're weapons, tools, instruments of transformation. When you speak life, you elevate your energy. You shift the frequency of your environment. Your words have creative power, not just emotionally, but spiritually and mentally. That's why it's not enough to think positively. You must speak with authority. The vibration of your voice carries weight. It breaks mental strongholds. It reconditions your subconscious. It calls forth things that haven't manifested yet and pulls them into your experience. That's not just motivational talk. It's a law of creation. The challenge is that speaking life takes courage, especially when your circumstances contradict your confession. It's easy to speak faith when everything is going well, but real power shows up when you declare abundance while staring at lack, or speak healing while feeling pain. That kind of speech rewrites your reality from the inside out. It tells your mind, your body, and your environment what to align with. And over time, it becomes your new normal, not because something outside of you changed first, but because you decided to lead your life with language. When you speak life, you're not ignoring your current situation, you're rewriting it. You're not pretending the facts don't exist, you're declaring that the facts are subject to change. And they will change when your words are consistent with your vision and not your fear. The world within you must become greater than the world around you, and that transformation begins when you start speaking as the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. Repetition is not just a learning tool, it is a spiritual and psychological principle that governs how humans are shaped. Whatever you hear, say, or do repeatedly becomes part of you. Your habits, your thoughts, your beliefs, even your identity are all formed through repetition. That's why change doesn't happen through a one-time burst of inspiration. It happens through daily disciplined exposure to truth. The most powerful revelations in your life didn't come from hearing something once. They came from hearing it so many times that it finally broke through the wall of your old programming. Most people underestimate the power of repetition because they're addicted to novelty. They want something new every day, a new quote, a new trick, a new secret. But transformation doesn't come from variety, it comes from mastery. And mastery comes from repeating what matters until it becomes second nature. You don't need 1,000 strategies, you need one truth drilled so deeply into your mind and spirit that it becomes part of your default response to life. It's not what you occasionally hear that changes you. It's what you consistently absorb. Every belief you hold right now was shaped through repetition. You weren't born believing in limitations, fear, or scarcity. You learned those things by being exposed to them again and again. So if repetition created the old you, then repetition must also create the new you. That means you have to be intentional about what you repeat, because repetition is happening whether you're conscious of it or not. The question is, are you repeating lies or repeating truth? Repetition breaks resistance. At first, when you try to speak differently, think differently, or act differently, your mind will push back. It's used to the old pattern, but when you repeat the new behavior long enough, the resistance weakens. Your brain starts to rewire. New neural pathways are formed, and what once felt forced becomes automatic. That's why people who succeed often say the same affirmations, read the same scriptures, or listen to the same messages over and over again, not because they forgot, but because they understand the power of soaking in truth until it becomes alive. You don't become confident by hyping yourself up once. You become confident by constantly reinforcing the truth about who you are, even when your emotions and circumstances say otherwise. Repetition builds internal authority. It allows you to speak and act from a place of deep conviction instead of shallow motivation. Motivation fades, emotion fluctuates, but conviction is built through consistency. It's built through saying it, believing it, and doing it until there is no longer a gap between who you are and who you were created to be. Repetition is how you build spiritual muscles. Just like physical exercise shapes the body through repeated movement, spiritual and mental strength are developed by repeating truth, prayer, meditation, and focused action. One workout doesn't make you fit. One prayer doesn't make you powerful. One affirmation doesn't change your destiny. It's the discipline of returning again and again to the same foundational truths that solidifies your transformation. And every time you do, you dig the truth deeper into your core. One of the biggest mistakes people make is quitting before the repetition takes root. They try something for a week, don't see results, and assume it doesn't work. But results follow rhythm. If you plant a seed and dig it up every other day to check if it's growing, it will never take root. The same goes for transformation. You must trust the process enough to keep watering the soil even when nothing seems to be happening yet. Because under the surface, repetition is doing its work. The enemy of growth isn't failure, it's inconsistency. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be planted. Repeating the right thoughts, words, and actions, even when you don't feel like it, that's where the power is. That's where you break cycles. That's where you outgrow your past. It's not about hype, it's about habit. And your habits are shaped by what you rehearse daily. If you rehearse defeat, you'll live in defeat. But if you rehearse victory, you'll rise to the level of what you've been practicing. Repetition is how truth becomes revelation. You may know something in your head, but when you repeat it enough, it drops into your spirit. That's when it becomes real. That's when it changes how you see, how you speak, and how you walk. You can't live a life of power based on head knowledge alone. You need revelation. And revelation is birthed through immersion, through constant exposure to truth until it lights a fire inside of you, until it becomes louder than your doubts and more convincing than your fears. Everything you want to become is waiting on the other side of repetition. There's no shortcut around it. There's no hack that bypasses the process. Repetition is the bridge between information and transformation. You can listen to wisdom all day long, but if you don't repeat it, you won't retain it. And if you don't retain it, you can't live it. The person who becomes powerful is the one who decides to show up every day and repeat the truth until the truth becomes them. Your identity is not something you're born with, it's something you create. Every experience, every conversation, every choice, every piece of information you take in adds another layer to who you are. The truth is, you are the sum of what you consistently allow into your mind, heart, and spirit. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, the thoughts you entertain, these things are shaping your reality. They are sculpting your self-image, your worldview, and your belief systems. And over time, these inputs mold the person you become. We live in a world overflowing with input, and much of it comes without your consent. Social media, news outlets, advertisements, all of these bombard you with information that doesn't always serve your highest good. Some of it is toxic, some of it is misleading, and some of it is just plain negative. But we've been conditioned to accept much of it without question. The impact this has on your identity is subtle yet powerful. If you constantly feed your mind with negativity, doubt, and comparison, you begin to see yourself through a distorted lens. You start believing that everyone else has it together while you're stuck, flawed, or inadequate. The input you allow into your life doesn't just come from external sources, it comes from your own thoughts as well. What do you think about yourself on a daily basis? What do you say when you look in the mirror? Your self-talk is one of the most powerful forms of input because it's the closest to you. If you tell yourself that you're not good enough, that you can't do something, that you'll never achieve your goals, you're reinforcing that belief with every word. Those thoughts and declarations are feeding your subconscious mind, shaping how you see yourself and how you approach life. This is why mindset is so important. The way you think about yourself influences every action you take. If you believe you are unworthy, you will never pursue opportunities with the same boldness as someone who knows their worth. If you believe you are destined for failure, you'll find yourself sabotaging your success before it even begins. Your input determines your output, and your output over time defines your life. You can't expect to reach your potential if the input you're feeding your mind is filled with self-doubt, fear, and negativity. Just as negative input shapes you in a limiting way, positive input can transform your life. The people you spend time with, the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the environments you immerse yourself in, they all contribute to your growth or stagnation. If you consistently surround yourself with people who uplift you, challenge you, and support your dreams, they will elevate your thinking and encourage your growth. But if you stay in circles that mock your ambitions, discourage you, or keep you stuck in your comfort zone, you will remain stagnant, regardless of your potential. The key is to take control of the input you allow into your life. You have the power to choose what you consume. Start by auditing the people, the media, and the content that you engage with. Ask yourself, does this feed my growth or does it feed my limitations? If the input doesn't align with where you're going, you must set boundaries and remove it. It's not enough to just think positive thoughts. You need to feed your mind with positive, powerful, and empowering content that aligns with the person you are becoming. Remember, your identity is constantly evolving. The input you receive today is shaping who you will be tomorrow. If you want to grow into the person you were created to be, you must be intentional about the input you allow. Replace toxic, unproductive content with things that inspire, educate, and motivate you to take action. Listen to messages that remind you of your worth, your purpose, and your potential. Read books that challenge your thinking, expand your knowledge, and push you toward your goals. The more you consciously fill your mind with positive, empowering input, the more your identity will align with that. But it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. The quality of the input you take in matters more than the volume. One powerful, truth-filled message a day can have more impact than endless hours of mindless scrolling. One conversation with someone who believes in you can shift your mindset more than 1,000 moments of doubt. Focus on what matters. Focus on what will add value to your life, what will expand your perspective, and what will propel you toward your destiny. The input you receive will also determine your resilience. When you are constantly feeding yourself with encouragement, wisdom, and inspiration, you become mentally tough. You learn how to face adversity with a growth mindset. You stop seeing obstacles as insurmountable problems and start seeing them as opportunities for growth. But if your input is filled with negativity, pessimism, or victim mentality, you'll struggle to see solutions. Your perspective will be limited, and every challenge will feel like an insurmountable roadblock. Your input shapes your identity, but you have the power to reshape it at any moment. If you don't like who you are becoming, change the input. Start today. Surround yourself with people who lift you higher. Read books that stretch your thinking. Listen to content that inspires you to take bold action. Guard your mind against negative influence and begin feeding it with truth, possibility, and abundance. Over time, this new input will shape you into the person you are always meant to be. Your identity will evolve, your potential will unfold, and your life will change in ways you never thought possible. Designing your life with intention and faith is not an act of randomness, nor is it left to chance. It's a purposeful, conscious process that requires both vision and belief. Most people drift through life reacting to circumstances rather than shaping their own experiences. They go along with whatever comes their way, hoping for the best, but never truly taking the reins of their destiny. The reality is, you have the power to create a life that aligns with your deepest desires, but it takes intentionality. Without it, you're simply a passenger on your own journey. With intention, you become the driver of your life, steering it in the direction of your purpose and vision. To design your life intentionally means that you have to know where you want to go. You can't navigate your path without a clear destination in mind. This requires you to sit down and ask yourself some difficult but essential questions. What do I want to achieve? What legacy do I want to leave? How do I want to impact the world around me? These questions require deep introspection, but they also provide clarity. When you get crystal clear on your vision, it becomes easier to make decisions and take actions that align with that vision. Intention is not about being busy or merely going through the motions. It's about being purposeful and deliberate in every choice you make. Faith plays a key role in this process. Having faith in yourself and in the process is what allows you to take the first step, even when you can't see the entire staircase. Many people struggle with doubt, especially when they haven't yet seen the results of their efforts. They hesitate, they second guess, and they procrastinate. But faith is what propels you to move forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Faith is the belief that the effort you put in today will create the foundation for something greater tomorrow. It's the trust in the process, in your abilities, and in the unseen forces working behind the scenes to align everything in your favor. When you design your life with intention, you must also design it with faith that you will have the strength and resilience to overcome obstacles. Life will throw challenges at you. There will be setbacks, failures, and unexpected detours, but when you live with intention and faith, These challenges don't derail you, they strengthen you. They become opportunities for growth and expansion. You learn from them, adapt, and keep moving forward. The key is not to be afraid of obstacles, but to face them head on, knowing that they are simply part of the process of creating the life you desire. Designing your life with intention also means being strategic with your time and energy. Time is one of the most precious resources you have, and how you spend it dictates the quality of your life. If you allow distractions, negative influences, and time-wasting habits to control your schedule, you will never move closer to your goals. You must be intentional with how you spend each day. Set aside time for the things that matter most, whether that's working on your goals, nurturing your relationships, or taking care of your health. It's about creating a daily rhythm that supports your long-term vision rather than letting the demands of the day dictate your direction. Faith also plays a critical role in how you handle setbacks and challenges. There will be times when things don't go according to plan, and that's where your faith must step in. Faith is not about denying reality. It's about knowing that the reality you see now is temporary. It's about believing that the obstacles you're facing are stepping stones towards something greater. When you have faith, you can view challenges as opportunities for refinement rather than roadblock. You can see delays as divine timing rather than setbacks. Faith gives you the perspective to continue moving forward even when the path seems uncertain. Living intentionally also means aligning your actions with your values. When your life is designed around your values, everything you do feels more authentic. You're not just chasing after success for the sake of success, but you're living a life that is true to who you are. This requires self-awareness and a willingness to be honest with yourself about what truly matters. It's easy to get caught up in the expectations of others or the societal definition of success, but living with intention means rejecting those external pressures and instead designing a life that reflects your core beliefs and desires. The beauty of living intentionally and with faith is that it brings a sense of purpose and fulfillment. When you know why you're doing something, when you understand how your actions are aligned with a larger vision, every step feels more meaningful. Whether you're working toward a career goal, building relationships, or improving your health, the sense of purpose you derive from living intentionally fuels your passion and determination. It's no longer about simply going through the motions. It's about creating a life that feels rich with meaning regardless of the circumstance. Creating a life by design also means being open to growth and change. When you live with intention, you're not confined to the person you were yesterday. You understand that transformation is a constant part of the journey. You evolve as you learn new things, gain new experiences, and meet new people. Your goals may change, your dreams may evolve, but your commitment to intentional living remains constant. The faith you have in your ability to adapt and grow is what ensures that your life will continue to improve no matter where you start from. Finally, designing your life with intention and faith is about embracing the process rather than focusing solely on the destination. Too many people wait for the perfect moment to take action, thinking that once they achieve their goals, they'll finally be happy. But real happiness comes in the doing, in the journey itself. Every day is an opportunity to live with purpose, to make choices that bring you closer to your vision. Faith is not just about believing in a distant future. It's about trusting the present moment and knowing that every step you take is leading you exactly where you're meant to go.